Hello everyone and welcome to episode 59 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny Massive Breakdown show. My name is Impetus, and today I am joined by Just Court, as St. Kabir is off celebrating his birthday. We've got another GM guide for you this week, as well as some Destiny news to discuss, so let's dive into our thank yous. Court, how are you doing, and who are we thanking today?
I'm not too bad, sir. No Saint this week, and we have quite a few people to thank this week. First, we have a review from Cannon Blackwell from Apple Podcasts in the US. Just saying, kind of appreciating us kind of talking about the sort of newer approach when it comes to weapon breakdowns and activity breakdowns, and just thank you very much for that. Just some general mentions and feedback from the community at large. Just speaking about our revamped weapon breakdowns. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been sending us that feedback in regards to this, and of course our revised activity breakdowns. And of course, we obviously want to thank our big sponsors. They keep the meter running, the lights going. We have a Modern Viking, Askin Monk, Binary Wolf, Black Hammer Tech, Bryce Aroni, Deacon, Moonlight, Shazzle, Sylv, This Moment, and Zenzo Cal. Thank you very much to them and, of course, our patrons. You can send us all kinds of feedback directly to any of our socials or the DMB Discord server. Positive, critical, constructive feedback helps with the trajectory of the podcast and how we present and break down builds, activities, and much more, as you've been hearing. So don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions or ideas for builds. We're all happy to talk about Destiny. We do use Chartable to aggregate our podcast reviews, so this may take a little bit of time for non-US listeners' reviews to appear. So if you want to reach out to us and give us the review that way, you're more than welcome to. Just want to say special thanks to everyone that supports us, whether that's downloading, listening to our show, discussing it in the Discord server, or supporting us via Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to support our show this way, please visit DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com and click on the link to Patreon. You'll get access to members-only channels in Discord, behind-the-scenes information, input on the future of the show, plus access to our legendary annual merch drop. You can also check out our sibling podcast, that's Destiny Massive Breakdowns, that dives into the nitty-gritty PvP sandbox with Ill Physics and Lego Flash, and Beneath Twin Suns, the Star Wars podcast that explains it all with Mercules and Kit Kutcha. All right, Impetus, what are we talking about this week?
So as we said last week, we are actually going to cover some news that came out the week before. That's the April 6th TWAB, and then Joe Blackburn's Reflecting on Lightfall Launch and Beyond article. We're not going to be covering this prior week's TWAB. There wasn't anything in there specifically related to PvE, so we're not going to touch on that. But there are some good details in there, especially in regards to charity and third-party applications and how Bungie feels about those. So if you are interested in those topics, please do go check out that TWAB. And then, of course, we will be covering a new GM, which has been a first in a while for us. This is the Mars Heist Battlegrounds Grandmaster Nightfall that will be coming up this week. We're going to be going through that and giving our recommendations and some strategies that we've been working on. But before we get into all that, we're going to talk about what we did in Destiny 2 last week. I will start things off here. I did do the third of 4 Master Root of Nightmares challenges with my raid team. This is the one involving the planets encounter. Really, really fun challenge. Did enjoy it quite a lot. I think the last time I did a challenge, a Master Raid challenge, would have been Vow, and I know that my team and we did the first encounter there, and then we had some scheduling conflicts, and the way that these challenges work is it's kind of once a week, and so you got to wait all the way through the rotation, and things kind of fell apart for my team, so I skipped out on King's Fall Master Challenges, and then got back in for Root of Nightmares. This is the first Root of Nightmares challenge that I really did enjoy. Just kind of, you got to do the encounter in reverse, but do it better, and I like that a lot. Had a blast, so I'm hoping that the Nezarec challenge kind of follows in the same vein, because this was a lot of fun and it kind of got me back into doing master raids again. I also started doing GMs as those came out, so I ran 3 of them and attempted the Mars Battleground heist. I did not get a completion. We did run into some server issues, so I'm hoping to go back in and complete it today, but I did get all the way up to the boss fight and halfway through it actually before we had a wipe there, so I'm pretty familiar with what to expect and where I need to improve as a player. I did acquire a rapid hit or shoot to loot with kinetic trimmers on Jury Adept, which feels nice. Been chasing a good roll of that weapon for a very long time, so got that one in the vault. Excited to use shoot to loot when its new applications come out next season. And then I've been working in comp, try and get up to the gold division by the end of this season. That's my own goal here. I'm not going to be able to get up to Adept or Ascendant. I don't necessarily want to, but yeah, just working on being a better PvP player, so that feels good. Court, what did you do this past week?
Much the same as you. I also did the Master Raid Challenge, and yeah, it's a pretty fun one. Out of the 3 that we've had so far, it's definitely the highlight. It's a lot going on. It kind of harks back to I think all 3 of us have discussed kind of before, where everyone has to do something. Even the ad control folks have a lot to do. So I've been really enjoying that. And yeah, same with the Grandmasters. I have gilded them all. Some really fun and interesting and scary ones this season. We do have some recurring Grandmasters like Glassway and Proving Grounds, but yeah, Mars Battleground is the one that we're talking about this week. But I'll just quickly say it's a really fun one, as even though it's pretty, it takes a while and can be overwhelming. But we were having a blast. So shout out to Phaeton and Noah who helped complete that. We did, I think it was 4 or 5 tries, and yeah, really fun. Outside of that, pretty much quiet. I haven't really touched anything else like PvP or anything like that. But yeah, so Saint isn't here this week, but he did put in a little thing here. He has made it all the way to Guardian rank 11 this week from the GM Gauntlet, going back to Spire for the solo clear. I will say I obviously did my solo follow Spire last season, but there's currently an unintended bug where you can't, it's not tracking that retroactively, so I'm just going to wait till Tuesday when that patch comes out to do it, because I'm not prepared to go and do that again. It's no sir. He said here he really enjoyed the climb for the most part, and I'm excited to see how they'll continue to develop it over the next couple of seasons. And he is currently still on a long weekend trip visiting some old friends and to celebrate his birthday. So he's sad to miss this week's episode, but no, it's in good hands with us two, the Hunter and the Warlock. Yeah, happy birthday, sir, and we'll see you very shortly. All right, on to some interesting business, some interesting posts from Joe Blackburn. But firstly, we're going to talk about weapons that are leaving and then entering this season and next season. So this comes from the 6th of April TWAB. So by the time this episode comes out, it's been almost 2 weeks since we saw this. So I'll start us off. Weapons that are leaving in Season 20. The Nightfall, we've got Mindbender's Ambition. When you listen to this episode, when it comes out, that is the week for Mindbender's Ambition. It's the final week in the rotation, and that is the Solar Aggressive Frame Shotgun. Then we have Malicious Birthright, which is, I think it's the following week, I want to say. I don't have the schedule up for that. It's either Hypernet or it's Arms Dealer. I feel like it's Arms Dealer, but it's coming up. So yeah, Mindbender, that is the, Malicious Birthright, which is Kinetic Lightweight Grenade Launcher, and over on Trials of Osiris, we've got the Inquisitor, which is the Arc Precision Slug Shotgun. The final week in rotation is the 9th of May, and Whistler's Whim, which is already out of rotation, is the Kinetic Lightweight Bow. Iron Banner, we've got Wizen Rebuke, my preferred Arc High Impact Fusion Rifle, even though we're getting more arc high impact fusion rifles in the future. And we have the Hero's Burden, which is the Void adaptive SMG. And over on the competitive side, Rose is being rotated out, and that is the lightweight kinetic hand cannon. That's the very sought after hand cannon for those enthusiasts. I will say here, all the weapons that are leaving will enter the legacy focusing for future seasons. So next season, you'll be able to focus these weapons if you don't already have them. You just won't be able to get the adept versions. All right, Impetus, what weapons are we going to be seeing next season?
Yes, so starting in Nightfall side here, we are going to be chasing 2 new adept variants of returning weapons. We have the Braytech Osprey, that is a Void high-impact rocket launcher. I will also say Bungie has let us know that there will be a new rocket launcher perk coming out next season, so I expect it will appear on the Braytech Osprey. And we also have the Loaded Question. This is the arc high-impact fusion rifle that Court is referring to. This is where the Reservoir Burst perk originally debuted on. So I presume we'll get to see that perk again along with some new things. For the Vanguard, we have the Positive Outlook. This is a Void precision auto rifle. We finally have a new Void precision. Well, I don't actually. Is it new, or is it one of the vanilla D2 ones?
I feel like I can't remember if someone said it's either a green or a blue.
Oh, of course, yes.
Auto rifle. I want to say, but it is recurring. We've had it before, whether it's green, blue, or legendary.
You know what? I'll take it. We're getting another Void auto rifle, baby. Let's go. It's been a while.
I mean, we could have just got Gnawing Hunger reissued again.
Nope. Not going down that path. We're not going. It's Positive Outlook. I'm trying to have a positive outlook. That's the name of the gun. That's what I'm trying to do right now, Court. For Gambit, we are getting an unnamed Strand linear fusion rifle. This will be the first Strand linear fusion rifle. For Crucible, we have Randy's Throwing Knife, which is a kinetic rapid-fire scout rifle returning. Trials of Osiris, we have an unnamed Arc Glaive. And then the Messenger, which is a kinetic high-impact pulse rifle, a favorite of mine. Very excited to go and chase that again. On the Iron Banner side, we have an unnamed Strand fusion rifle and the Swarm of the Raven, which is a Void rapid-fire heavy grenade launcher. And then in competitive, we have an unnamed Arc sniper rifle to chase. A lot of good, interesting things to chase. A lot of good things coming back. A few new things. Very excited. They're continuing the Strand stuff, which is always nice. Excited to see what our adept weapons will be rolling with here. We have a glaive for trials. That is so funny to me. That is our list of weapons. Anything standing out there that you're really excited about, Court?
Well, I am the fusion rifle enthusiast, so Loaded Question, yeah. I'm more interested in kind of faster fire rate fusion rifle, or charge rates, I should say. So it'll be interesting what that Strand fusion rifle is, where you get from Iron Banner. We haven't. When Riptide was Riptide our most recent rapid fire, or have we had something since?
I cannot remember if Burden of Guilt came out later or at the same. No, it was the same season. So Riptide and Burden of Guilt were the most recent ones, I believe.
But Burden's an adaptive, though. So I'm more interested with it being rapid fire. So, well, to be honest, an adaptive would be fine as well, even precision. But be interesting. See if I can wane myself off Riptide. But, Randy's Throwing Knife is a nice throwback. That is something I used quite a bit. It felt really good. What else we got here? So, Braytech Osprey, which is the Void high-impact rocket launcher. Be very interesting to see what perks it has, because high impacts, as we all know, if you've been reading or viewing my infographic related to rocket launchers, high impacts are the baseline. So they do 10% more damage than precisions, but 10% less damage than adaptives and aggressives. So, be interesting what weapon perks that we get on Braytech. I don't want to be too kind of doomsaying and say that it might be dead on arrival, because it's up against some really high profile competitors, even in the high impact frame, like Roar of the Bear is a very solid one. It's not disappearing; it's still going to be kind of readily active, and it is solar versus void. But against other kind of adaptives and aggressives, we'll see. You got any eyes on any of these weapons?
I mean, the Void Auto Rifle, I do. I'm not a huge fan of precisions. I like adaptives more, and after playing around with Rufus, I'm a huge fan of 720s now, the rapid fires. So, again, the one Void Auto Rifle I do have is Gnawing Hunger, and it's so old. I mean, it's Subsistence Rampage is how old it is. That used to be a good roll back when we had the last Void Auto Rifle. So I'm excited to see our Void 3.0 perks show up on that, because I know we'll get Repulsor. I mean, it's going to have 12 perks in column 3 and 4, so we'll get them all. We'll get Destabilizing Rounds, I imagine. We'll get Repulsor Brace. So it's cool, but I'll probably have to put in a few resets to get those chances of getting the roll I want up there. But yeah, beyond that, probably the Messenger. I really enjoyed the last time it was an adept one. I had Outlaw Desperado. That was a lot of fun to play with. We'll see if that role shows up, if there's new stuff that they put on there. If Kinetic Trimmer shows up on that could be really interesting. Another adept pulse rifle with kinetic trimmers. I would chase that for sure, but again, well, we shall see. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up here, but this is all conjecture. That could get me into trials. We'll see.
Interest. All right. Okay, we're going to head over to the kind of semi-recent blog post from Jill Blackburn, which was the Reflecting on Lightfall Launch and Beyond dev post. So he's just talking about the Season 20 updates, along with upcoming Season 21 and beyond changes to many of the core systems. We knew about this prior to Lightfall, that this year is going to be the kind of the year of core changes, and they're going to tackle a lot of kind of foundational stuff. So we're not going to go into too much detail. That's coming by the time this podcast comes out. It'll be the mid-season update, and if there's any kind of Season 20 updates between now and Season 21, we're going to focus more on the beyond, Season 21 and beyond. So starting things off, Guardian ranks and commendations, which has been kind of high-profile topic amongst the community. When it comes to Guardian ranks goals, it's there to serve as a guide to let you know what you should be doing to improve your Guardian, especially if you're new to the game. They should create a social signal to others so that you can quickly glean some information about Guardian skill within D2. The social signal should also carry meaning season over season. So the changes that are coming in the future, if your rank, or I should say your rank displayed to everyone will reflect your highest rank earned last season. So let's say, I'm currently rank 10, and if I don't do rank or get up to rank 11, then next season I will be rank 10. It doesn't matter how much I play next season. I can improve on that. I can get rank 11, but it will always work on the previous season's wherever you positioned within that rank system. As a reminder, players renew their previously completed ranks by only completing blue-tinted categories in the Guardian rank progression. Other categories will not reset. Ranks you do not renew will fade at the end of a season. Commendations, they're meant to create cycles of gratitude so that players are thankful to one another. They should reinforce that the most celebrated Guardians are those who have earned and the respect of their peers by helping them out. And the changes they've mentioned here, commendation counts will reset each season to reflect your experience with the newest content. Your commendation score and breakdown will be tracked each season, and you'll only lose a percentage of your commendation score each season rather than having it fully reset. In Season 21, they're adding a new display to the journey screen that will show your recent seasonal history. This will include Guardian ranks, commendation score, commendation breakdown, seasonal challenges, and seasonal triumph score. So how are we feeling with this? I know we'll talk about commendations and Guardian ranks at a much later date, I think at the end of this season, with the season breakdown and review, but how are we feeling with these changes, Impetus?
Again, I'm not huge into the Guardian ranks as a system, so it does the change there to having the rank display. Whatever I achieved the prior season, I just hit rank 8 because I did enough Nightfalls. That was the last thing. I have not been actively ranking up any of those goals. It's just as they've been unlocked as I play different pieces, I accept that. So I just hit rank 8. I'm fine if it shows rank 8 next season. Again, I will not be actively pursuing that level up system. I don't like the higher level requirements. They're not things that I actively want to pursue. If I truly run out of content in the game that I feel like I need to go get that number up, I probably would just stop playing Destiny, to be honest. So, yeah, if it shows rank 8 or if it shows rank 6, I truly do not care. But I think for the folks that do want to actually pursue that system, this does seem quite fair. I think one of the things that kind of I was reminded of when we first got the system was the original Gilding of Conqueror, where you had to wait until pretty much the end of the season to show that you had gilded, Conqueror or Flawless or Dredgen, and then they made that change to say, especially for Conqueror, you could do the special playlist, knock all 6 out right in that first week, and then you'd have a little bit more time to display your gilded Conqueror. This seems to be following in that line of logic, where we'll let you at least see all the progress you made at a prior point, and you don't have to wait until the end of a season to show off, your rank 10, your rank 11 again. So I do like that. I think that will be nice for players that do want to get to 11 or 10 or 9 season over season. All power to you. For the commendations, again, big issue here was that it felt like Bungie set it up to where people would want to farm for specific commendations, especially in terms of what Guardian ranks asks of you, but then also just to inflate your score. So I think having the commendation score reset over season is kind of meant to deter from that. I think that's one way to get around it. I don't, again, actively want to, build up my commendation score. I'd like to live in a world where it's just I earn it naturally, but so be it. So I think the display for the journey screen is a cool feature. It doesn't do a whole lot for me personally, but I think for people where that really matters, of getting a high seasonal triumph score, trying to knock out all of your seasonal challenges season over season, that'll be cool to at least reflect back on the time that you've had in the year of Lightfall. What do you think, Court?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more positive when it comes to Guardian ranks anyway. Commendations, I've got some issues with, but the one thing which actually they talked about it later on, where the objectives to receive specific type of commendations will be retroactive. And I was quite frustrated when I got to rank 10 or whatever to see, now you need to go and receive leadership or skill commendation, a specific type of commendation. And it's just like, well, I'm at how many? I think it was like 2,000 score at this point. I've already received these. Why is this not tracking retroactively? But they've spoke about that. That is being fixed for next season. And then we've got a few bug fixes coming with the mid-season patch as well. So that's kind of eased my kind of outlook towards the Guardian rank system. But yeah, I do share kind of similar sentimentality with yourself when it comes to Guardian ranks and commendations. I think there will be a point this year where I will likely disengage. I'm sort of engaged with it right now. But, come season 22 or 23, and it's just like, it's just another tick box. So, yeah, I think the three of us will have kind of more in-depth outlook and kind of breakdown on our feelings with these two particular systems. But at the end of the season or at some point in the future. But, yeah.
Yeah, I do want to hear Saint's thoughts now that he's hit level 11. And so we'll have to wait till the end of the season to get his full breakdown, but very curious to see how he feels about that.
We have some additional changes here. So later in season 20, they are updating the eligibility for combinations based on activity participation or lack thereof, adding a new commendation as well of best dressed, which the most recent TWAB went into more detail. Looks cool, but again, I just feel like the commendation system wasn't really fleshed out when it was launched, and adding these best dressed commendations. As you know, as nice as it is, it just feels a bit redundant, I guess. But
okay, all right.
I'm just, if they had went down this route of doing these best dressed or the most efficient with orbs of powers or stuff like that, I think I might have been a little bit more engaged with the system. But if it was more curated, it was more specific to dressed or worse looking Titan or stuff like that, maybe. But them adding a best dressed commendation just feels like, well, we were asking for it, so they are giving us it. So it's like, okay. So for season 21, this is planned for season 21. Returning players will now start at rank 5, and ranking up from 5 to 7 will be faster than it was to rank up from 6 to 7 at launch. The rank renewal will be fast-tracked, so most players will have quickly renewed rank 7 by playing seasonal content, earning artifact power, and completing seasonal challenges, and trying out the newest exotic. Bungie plan on remixing ranks 6 to 11 to provide a better expression of skill between these ranks, and Bungie will revisit when required. Objectives to, so I mentioned here, objectives to receive leadership commendations in rank 10 and 11 will be retroactive for the season, so raids and dungeons that you lead from day 1 will count towards your progress.
All right. We shall see how this all plays out. Kind of one of those things. All right, guys, it's your system. If you want to remix it, I'm eager to see how you make changes. But yeah, starting me at rank 5 versus starting me at rank 6, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna play the game the way I normally play, and if I start leveling up, cool. If not, I'm not really gonna. It's not gonna bother me. So, yeah, you guys do what you need to do to get to the system where you want it to be, and if it's something I'm interested in, I'll invest into it. Speaking of systems that need some investment, we have had some difficulty adjustments. So this is coming in the season. This particular one is coming in the season 20 mid-season update, which we know is coming next by the time this episode comes out. Is that right? Have they confirmed that date? Great. So this is in particular to the Heist Battleground Mars. So in the Towers phase, they are decreasing how often combatant waves spawn on higher difficulties. They are increasing the strike score multiplier, and they are adding an additional ammo crate. There's a few other Heist Battleground changes that are not specific to the Mars variant. During boss fights, they've reduced the frequency and number of some combatant waves. The Death Tongue Choristers have reduced health, and then the Hive Rune will have the same health on all difficulties. The Moon Battleground in particular will have reduced Fallen Trip Mines. So that is all coming in the Season 20 mid-season update. There's a few other things here. This is all coming in a future update, which has an unknown release, so no specific dates, but there are plans for these. In the new Muna Patrol, certain patrols will be easier to complete. For Terminal Overload, the event enemies, this is in regards to the event enemies. Rather than fighting generic enemies that don't give progression towards the event, Bungie is investigating new tech that will allow them to be more flexible in a future destination. I know that's kind of a bit of a pain there as you're trying to complete the Terminal Overload waves. For Vanguard scoring and reputation, Bungie's plan is to take a pass at low strike score multipliers and individual objectives to make sure everything feels better, specifically Guardian rank, Nightfall scoring objectives, and the Legend Dares of Eternity bounties. They are also adding a throttle to prevent certain exploits as an optimal score strategy, and then after Season 20 concludes, they do plan on doing a full review of Vanguard scoring over the entire season and may have other tunings to make. If you're not sure what this is in regards to, there are incredibly few Nightfalls that don't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be naturally possible to hit, the 200,000 score or 100,000 score that you need for a certain pinnacle in regards to doing Nightfalls that are not the Grandmasters. So this is all in the kind of the first half of the season before the Grandmasters come out. It seems that in order to hit those, you do need to do something like have players die over and over again and then revive them for extra points. So Bungie is aware of that. They are preventing players from getting around the strategy, but then also say that they do want to make sure that it is possible to hit whatever that number of points is to get that Vanguard Pinnacle or Nightfall Pinnacle easier to do for every single Nightfall that is available in a given season. So thank you. That was really annoying to come in week after week and see a post on Destiny the Game subreddit saying it is not possible to get the 200,000 or 100,000 points for this master Nightfall. Don't bother, or you need to do certain cheeses to get to it. But yeah, they're aware of it. They're working on it. Court, you got anything to add about these?
I think the most egregious example there was Lake of Shadows, which was, it's been revamped, but I can't remember who it was I was playing with. I think it was Super Saiyan Saint, and I were doing a Master Lake of Shadows, and we'd get to the boss room and we'd have like 120,000. It's just like we can't complete this. I think it was one of the Guardian ranks challenge thing to get up to rank 9 or 10, and it was just like we can't do this. Luckily, I'd already done this with the Glassway, which was a very easy one. Like you could do very little in the Glassway in the form of any cheeses or anything. Like you just do it naturally, and you'd get that 250,000. I think we managed to get up to. So this weird kind of disconnect between all these Nightfalls that you can easily get up to 200,000, and then there's some that are just like you can barely pass 100,000. It never really made any sense. So yeah, the renewed approach to multipliers and kind of re-upping the score that you do get, it will be a welcome one, especially when it is connected to Guardian ranks. And it's like, well, I can't do it this week. I have to wait till whenever Glassway comes around, or Heist Battlegrounds, where you can get a lot of ads spawn in. What else did they talk about here? Yeah, the rest, I will say, so the Heist Battlegrounds change, that's specifically related to Legend and Master. The Grandmaster variant of Heist Battlegrounds does seem to have a specific or a curated approach when it spawns ads. I remember playing the Master version and then playing Grandmaster, which is more recent. And the Grandmaster version doesn't seem to have, it still has frequent ads wave spawn, but it's not as densely packed compared to Master. I do remember that. So these changes are specifically related to Legend and Master modes, which, yeah, I think the Master variant of Heist Battlegrounds was literally just, you had ads spawning out of every hole, out of every door, and through the ground, and it was just like, this is so much. Even this tether is just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. But yeah, some nice changes here. Yeah.
All right. We do have some more exciting news coming. So quickly touch on the Vex Strike Force event in the Vex Incursion Zone. They're making this is a future update, unknown release change here, but it will drop a new piece of exotic armor if you have any left to collect on a knockout list with no slot limits like Lost Sectors have. If you do not have any exotic armor left to collect, it will drop a random exotic roll. So that's very exciting. I know some people are kind of struggling to get that event to spawn in. It does seem like it's kind of on an hour basis. Every hour, it seems like an attempt at an event will occur within that zone, whichever day that's on. So, yeah. Get lucky and then try and complete it. I mean, you'll have 10 minutes, but you can get a guaranteed new piece of exotic armor from that if you have any left to unlock. So nice change there. Gets people out of Lost Sectors, which I think many folks in the community will look forward to, even if it's a little difficult to proc, but it's still a guaranteed exotic, which is nice. We've got some more coming in Season 21 stuff that's very exciting. So a few build crafting updates here. We are getting 2 new-ish armor mods added to the system here. First one is Powerful Attraction. When using your class ability, you collect all orbs of power within a radius determined by the number of copies of the mod you have equipped. The Bungie here has just added a design note to this. The requests for a Seeking Orbs mod, which is what we used to have, would allow orbs to track if you which allowed orbs to track to you. That request did not fall on deaf ears. However, adding such functionality to an object that is spawned as frequently in such numbers and for all fireteam members would create memory performance and latency issues. If you've ever done a GM with Court, you know exactly what kind of stress that would put on the system there. So I can completely sympathize with Bungie in that. But yes, we are getting a Seeking Orbs variant. So that will be quite nice here. I'll look forward to getting all those juicy orbs that Court provides for me. Yeah, use the class ability. I think that's a pretty reasonable request to do so. The second one we're getting is called Elemental Charges. Collecting the subclass collectible associated with your damage type, fire sprites for solar, ionic traces for arc, stasis shards for stasis, void breaches for void, has an escalating chance to grant you a stack of armor charge. On strand, this is granted by destroying tangles. The frequency of gaining a stack of armor charge is tuned differently for each collectible to account for the differences in frequency and volume of creating these collectibles. That's the design note for that mod. So these are our two new ones. Court, I gotta be honest, I didn't need any of these mods, for build crafting. I actually really do think the new mod system is one of the more positive, even highlights really of the Lightfall expansion for me. But I'm definitely happy to get these. Do you feel like you really needed these? Did you feel like the absence of these kind of mods was holding you back for build crafting?
I think with the elemental charges one, I think is a welcome change. I'm not saying Powerful Attraction isn't. I just don't think I'm going to use it as much. Depends on how it's working. Is it like a circle radius, or is it a sphere radius? So will it pick up orbs that are below or above you? I'm thinking of the Heist Battlegrounds balcony. I'm just thinking if I'll spew out some orbs that fall below, can I still pick them up? I'm assuming it will, but yeah, elemental charges. I'm all about the those elemental effects tapping into your armor charge system. But it's interesting that those specific ones will have individual tuning, which is fine. But Orbs of Power, which, you were joking there that I'm making tons and tons of Orbs of Power, but it's not just me, it's yourself and Sane. Anyone spewing out orbs by the tonnage. And it's this weird kind of, I don't know if I'm maybe reading into it too much, but when they're saying adding functionality to an object that is spawned as frequently in such numbers and for all fireteam members could create memory, performance, and latency issues. So it just feels like they're like, yeah, Orbs of Power, they're absolutely fine. You can spawn as many as you want. But when it comes to ionic traces and fire sprites, and they all have their individual kind of cooldowns, seems weird that they've went. I would flip it the other way around, where the elemental effects, they would maybe not guarantee, but you pick up 2 and you get an armor charge. And Orbs of Power will have a lesser kind of potency. You'd need to pick up 3 or 4. I don't know. It just seemed a bit weird, but we'll see how this works next season. But yeah, no, I think out of the 2, elemental charges will be the one I'm maybe focusing on. But I want them to put more focus on an elemental charge-like system with fire sprites, ionic traces, stasis shards, and void breaches. Yeah, they do their own little kind of individual effects. Fire sprites give you grenades, ionic traces gives you all 3, stasis shards gives you melee, and void breaches gives you class ability. But yeah, I want more of a focus on that. So yeah, it's a good foundation if they're going this way.
Definitely helps out a lot of stasis builds. I know my old Bleak Watcher one was hugely dependent on the old armor charge system, so this will be nice for, I think, getting some of that ability uptime a little bit higher up, not back to what it was, obviously, but so I'll definitely be throwing elemental charges on my stasis warlock builds. But
disregarding our weapons, I think stasis will be the one that benefits the most out of the 5 subclasses we have, because stasis doesn't really give you a lot of opportunity to spawn orbs with your various aspects and fragments. So stasis shards can be spawned quite a lot on all 3 classes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to exploiting the system on stasis Hunter. All right, so we have another thing, and we've been talking about it. It's the last 2 episodes now. Shoot to Loot is being updated. You can now basically shoot orbs of power in addition to ammo boxes with Shoot to Loot. So the design note here, we did evaluate also having a perk allowing you to collect fire sprites, station shards, etc. But technical limitations that made this unfeasible at this time. So maybe in the future, Shoot to Loot is going from S tier to SS tier. This is nuts. I've seen some comments about kinetic tremors and Shoot to Loot. I wonder if that will work. I think it currently does with ammo. The ammo not ammo boxes, but the ammo bricks at the spawn.
Oh boy!
So interesting.
This is going to be an excellent perk, I think, especially. The one example that comes to mind would be the Lightblade boss room. You get the orbs of power down there on the floor. Well, you don't typically like being down there because there's curse throw, and then also if the boss jumps on top of you, you're dead. There's no way to recover. So if you're up on that top level, kind of keeping an eye out on things, that can be huge there. But of course, as we'll talk about when we get into our Heist Battlegrounds, there's also going to be one area where we recommend that you stand during one room where you will be generating a lot of orbs of power, and they're not going to be very close to you. So this could be another excellent place for that perk to really shine. So yeah, Shoot to Loot is definitely going to be a perk to look out for on weapons. Definitely check your vault for any weapons you might have with Shoot to Loot, because that perk is becoming a very, very powerful column 3 option.
Next up, we have a little reminder, Strand Aspects, 3 new Strand Aspects coming in Season 21. We'll get a little bit more information before the launch of Season 21, which is not far off. Again, for Titans, that is Flechette Storm. For Hunters, that's Threaded Spectre. And for Warlock, it is the Wanderer. Very interesting, mysterious. The artifact is getting a little bit of quality of life. I'm looking forward to this the most, adding the ability to refund and apply individual artifact perks with a single click without having to reset the entire artifact. Golf claps all round.
Yes, great change.
Little note here about the seasonal ritual schedule. So Trials of Osiris launches week 1 of Season 21. We are not getting a power raise of any type in Season 21, so Bungie can run trials earlier than usual. This will continue throughout the year, assuming it's not a week where any of the following. So Raid is launching that weekend, Iron Banner is active that week, and there's no significant power level climb that's being introduced to that particular season. Grandmasters launches week 4 of Season 21 instead of week 7. So this will only apply for the weekly Grandmaster. The Conqueror Gilded node will still be planned to open in week 7. Bit of a bummer, to be honest. Yes, I can still do GMs after, on week 4, but I'm not really seeing why the Conqueror Gilded node has to be delayed until halfway through a given season. How are you feeling about that one?
I'm just kind of confused about timing because Bungie has said that they want to refresh a lot of our existing GMs and then also, again, add in maybe some battlegrounds of different types to that Grandmaster strategy. So if they are refreshing Nightfalls or adding in a new GM, I hope they know that put it in those first 4 weeks, so at least we get to play it on the lower difficulty. I think that'd be kind of a bit to ask of players to have a new GM or a reprised Nightfall, I should say, and then also have it available as a GM that week. That seems like kind of a lot for players that maybe aren't able to just jump into a Grandmaster from the get-go the way that some more experienced players are. So that's kind of surprising to me that we're going to have them available so early. I kind of liked having all 6 of them available up to Master and then jumping into the Grandmaster just to kind of get a refresh, right? If you haven't played a certain GM in a long time, or if it's coming back as a refreshed one, or if it's going to be brand new, at least getting to kind of calibrate your expectations. But having the Grandmaster available right from the get-go, if that could be a possibility, seems like a lot for players that maybe don't do this kind of activity on a seasonal basis. But again, we'll see how it plays out. All right. We do have, I think, probably the 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 note that maybe caught most attention from people would be exotic armor focusing. So we are getting through Rahul exotic armor focusing in season 21. So all exotic engrams, and this will exclude drops from activities that directly give you exotics like Lost Sectors, the Vex Strike Force, Nightfalls. Those do not auto decrypt. The actual engram itself will no longer auto decrypt. It will go sit in your engram inventory and then can be focused at 2 different tiers. We have the advanced decryption that will allow you to focus an exotic engram to a specific release, thinking Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, The Witch Queen, Lightfall, etc. Just like now, exotics that came out alongside seasonal releases are always included in the previous yearly entitlement. The cost for this is 1 exotic engram, 1 Ascendant Shard, and 30,000 Glimmer. This is the first tier. The next tier is the Precision Decryption. Directly focus the exotic armor you want. This will cost you 1 exotic engram, 3 Ascendant Shards, 60,000 Glimmer, and 1 exotic cipher. The exotic cipher stack limit has been increased from 1 to 5. You can also decrypt exotic engrams with no focusing for free at Rahul. You will not be able to get new pieces of exotic armor from focusing. These will need to be claimed first via the Vex Strike Force event or Lost Sectors. In the future, Bungie did say that they are planning on moving to acquiring new exotic armor in a more accessible location, but they did not specify beyond that. Court, how are we feeling about this? Are you going to use this system at all? Are you going to take your chances elsewhere?
So, as a new player, this is some steep pricing. I don't know, man. I think this system has just been... It's just a lot of like interesting aspects of this, but they haven't really focused on, a lot of us players, the 3 of us, we've got most, if not all the exotics, on all 3 classes. So when it comes to, right, what we're after now is to focus on a specific exotic. Like, I want a specific stat distribution on Assassin's Cowl or Orpheus Regs. But this system doesn't really, it doesn't give me that opportunity. And for me, I don't think I'll be engaging with this, especially with it being extremely pricey. I have Ascendant Shards, and I can get more Ascendant Shards every season, playing GMs. Glimmer's not too hard to come by, and the Exotic Cipher, which is not... the only way to get it is through the the season pass and through Xur. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the bottleneck.
And
it's pretty easy to get to exotic.
No, sorry. No, I thought the reputations, but that gives you Ascendant Shards after the first reset.
Yeah. So unless they're increasing the cipher drop rate or, being able to acquire them elsewhere, I just don't see much point of this system. Like, it's an interesting foundational level. I want to see this being expanded to what I would like is to be able to, I want to highlight this particular exotic or these particular exotics and go off and do Lost Sectors and then farm for it. We currently kind of have that system with the whole, this day, it's helmets. But I want to really fine tune and curate my experience, and this system doesn't really give me that opportunity. So, for new players, way too expensive. For existing players, it's just not really there for us. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I love your suggestion. I would totally take a Lost Sector card similar to the Trials of Osiris card, where I need to do a certain number of completions, I need to get a certain number of score in Lost Sectors, and I get a guaranteed specific exotic piece, right? I get that Shards of Gallon, or I get that, whatever, over this. The thing that I just keep coming back to is like, what's the best case scenario for this system as it's been presented to us? You want to do advanced decryption. You are looking for Mask of Bacchus from Beyond Light, and you've already got it unlocked. You want a better roll of it. You get that. It's got a 67 base stat split. Great spikes in everywhere that you want. What is that going to cost you? Well, you have to have the exotic engram. You have to spend a shard to get the roll and 30,000 glimmer. Now, if you want to masterwork that because it's perfect, it's got everything you want, that's another 3 ascendant shards, and then all of the other expenses that come along with it that I can't even remember, the glimmer, the legendary shards, the enhancement cores, the prisms on top of that. And that's just at the low level, the advanced. For precision, you're going to be spending a total of 6 ascendant shards. Again, if everything goes right, you get the exact roll that you want with the exact stats distribution that you need, right? 6 ascendant shards, 60,000 glimmer, 1 exotic cipher, 1 exotic engram, plus all the other things, the enhancement cores, the legendary shards, the prisms. No, I don't care if I get guaranteed 70s, man. This is going to deplete me entirely, and then I have to go and grind out more resources, and I do not want to do that. So for my own sanity, I don't feel like I can take advantage of this. I have to wait until the cost comes down.
Yeah, I'm happily willing to spend my resources, but it just, yeah, I Lost Sector card, being able to go in and I don't think Bungie's ever going to make the foundational level of you can focus on one exotic and only one exotic. I think they'll still do the whole, okay, here's a bunch of helmets, pick a minimum of 3 or 4 exotic helmets to focus on. That's something I want to see. And if this system kind of evolves into that, then great experience. But yeah, these costs are just like, I'm not going to engage with this system, to be honest. I think with them specifically mentioning Lost Sector exotics will still, they'll still auto-decrypt into their individual kind of loot pools. I think that was a big kind of a big bummer when folks were reading this. It's like, exotic armor focusing, and then they mentioned Lost Sectors, and it's just like, I'm probably not going to engage with this system. I think if they had kept Lost Sectors, or if they changed Lost Sector exotics to drop as an exotic engram, then we could go and tweak around with it. I think I would be more inclined to engage with that system. Keep Vex, Strike Forces, and Nightfalls as the sort of random rolled exotics, but yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but I am optimistic that the system will or can be evolved.
Yeah. All right, last thing we'll talk about before we do get into the subject of today's episode. This is the more to come section. So they did tease a few more updates that weren't fully discussed, but are coming in Season 21. These will come out in a future post. So they are going to be upgrading more than 15 lower performing exotic armors. I can only imagine what qualifies as a lower performing exotic armor. They are making balance changes to several other exotic armors that maybe are higher performing. We are getting news regarding raid and dungeon exotic drop chances through triumphs. We're not quite sure what that means. Maybe they're being added to old raids and dungeons. We would love to see that. And then team unfriendly Vanguard bounties requiring specific weapon or ability kills and much, much more. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll be breaking all of those down when we do finally get details. But for now, let's jump into the Mars Heist Battlegrounds GM. This is a doozy, Court. This is a banger.
Yeah, it is a banger. It's a lot of fun. Even though it took, I said 5 attempts at the start of the episode for when I eventually did get the clear. I was having a laugh. I was having a good time. Really stretching the limits of my particular builds. I'll talk about my Void Hunter build here in a second. But what's your thoughts with Heist Battlegrounds? I think I remember you saying that this might be one of the more kind of frustrating ones, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I did say that, yeah. I was worried about how they'd handle ad spawns, because of course when this was the seasonal activity last season, in Season of the Seraph, it was that infinite ad wave, and I was worried because we didn't, a lot of GMs traditionally focus on very set waves that you count for so that you know which enemies in those waves to prioritize. And props to Bungie, they've kept kind of the infinite ad wave strategy here, which is kind of a first for Nightfall, especially a Grandmaster Nightfall, but it is manageable, and I think that's a really delicate balance. So I do want to give props to them that it wasn't frustrating. The one time that we died last night, I was in a horrible position. I had 2 champions spawn on me, and I got immediately beamed down by an ogre, but it was entirely on where I was standing when that happened. Had I been in better placement, I might have, survived, been able to counter a little bit more efficiently. unfortunately. But yeah, this is definitely going to be an enemy-rich environment. I think that allows for us to spec and build craft into different things. Well, for some classes and subclasses, others not so much. But yeah, there's a lot going on here. There's also a lot of shields here. I'm looking at the numbers because we have the infographic pulled up. I think, save for Hypernet Current, this is the most shields that we have, or at least the potential for the most shields that we have out of all of our GMs here. There are 25 plus arc shields that can appear in this. There are 10 plus solar shields and 5 plus void shields. On the champion side, we are looking at 9 unstoppable ogres and 8 barrier hive knights. They are those ogres are a doozy. They are excellent. We also have plenty of other types of enemies that aren't champions but are equally as devastating. This is a solar threat, and then we do have, for the week that this is active, which would be the week that this episode comes out, there is a void and strand surge. There's an overcharge for machine guns. Do be aware, if you did this past week, there was a solar and strand surge, so those parts do change. I had to double check with Court on that. So the surges can rotate out depending on the week, but the threat and you also mentioned the overcharge can also change out per week, but the threat and then I guess the strand surge, that sticks around for the entire season or unique to the activity. Is that right?
So threat and overcharge are unique to the individual strikes.
Okay.
So if you pick Heist Battlegrounds at the end of the season, it's going to be machine gun and solar threat.
Gotcha.
What's going to be different, or potentially different, is the surge. And this applies to season 20. So for now, it's solar and strand or void and strand. When this episode comes out, it'll be void and strand, but the week after and then alternate weeks, it'll be solar and strand. In future seasons, this might be completely different. It might be arc and stasis. Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, anyway, the threat and the overcharge, and then obviously the champions and the shields, they're all individual to the particular strike, and those don't tend to change unless they go in and tweak with activity modifiers, which might be the case this year. They are changing a lot of the core foundations. So when this featured Heist Battlegrounds Mars, it is Mindbender's Ambition. Again, we mentioned at the start of the episode, it is the featured weapon, and it will be disappearing after this week. Recommended weapons, so we'll kind of pick and choose some here. I'm going to start off with primaries. With the exotic side, we've got Wishender, always a good one. Again, if you're matching the Void or Solar or Strand Surge, you will get the Wishender 25% bonus if you have that active. Outbreak Perfected, which again, you're pretty easy to get that with the Anti-Barrier Pulse or the Kinetic buff. I was using that in the 2 separate sessions, and it was doing some really good work. Revision 0, which will be getting a buff next season along with Outbreak Perfected, but Revision 0 is getting a more curated buff on top of the general pulse rifle kind of blanket buff. And also Striga, even though it doesn't have, so we don't have Overload this season, sorry, not this season, but this strike, it can be used as a kind of last resort, just start spreading that poison around, and if you're going down the Strand route, you can use that with Thread of Generation and that sort of particular build. For legendaries, so I use Disparity. Again, it's pretty easy to get that 25% buff with the Overcharge. That is Anti-Barrier Pulse, or if you don't have Anti-Barrier Pulse, you've got Origin Hones and the Ambush Origin trait. And then Riptide for that slowing and freezing. Specials, what were you thinking there, Impetus?
Yeah, I was using Wishender, and then in my energy slot, I was really, really leaning on Nezarac's Sin. That is the Arc Glaive. That was tremendous for dealing with the large number of arc shields, and then also we have Unstoppable Glaive in the artifact. That was a fantastic option, especially when the ogres start beaming you with their eye beam. Having that shield come up immediately was life-saving until it wasn't, but I won't get too much into that. So that, I think, is probably my number one pick if you are choosing to use a primary in your kinetic slot. Nezarac's Sin, definitely the energy recommendation there. That's not to say there aren't some other fantastic options. Conditional Finality, you, again, if you want to be the guardian to end all guardians and bum rush the ogres as they come towards you. You can definitely you'll have plenty of time to stun them. However, if you however way you want to, if you want to ignite them or freeze them, I think that would be a great option there. We do have a lot of enemies.
I'm guessing Saint put this in the script.
He must have. Yeah. I thought you would put that in there, but that makes a lot more sense that he put that in there. We do have a lot of enemies that rush you from many different areas, many different rooms. So most of them are thralls, but again, some of the Arc Knights have swords and shields as opposed to being a boomer variant. So getting up close isn't the worst thing. I think a lot of people will probably gravitate towards Riptide, but Conditional will absolutely put an enemy in the ground. It is a fantastic option. If you do want to play more at a longer range, Arbalist, fantastic option. We're going to have plenty of Barrier Knights. You want to pop all those shields immediately. I mean, really, really hard to beat Arbalist here. For our legendaries, this is kind of where things will open up again, depending on what you feel like you need to cover here. So Hollow Denial with a Repulsor Brace, Lead from Gold combo there for giving you that overshield. That's going to be great, especially if you're on a Void subclass. Saint and I will both be recommending that for Titans and Warlock. And Court, of course. I forgot about you for Void Hunters as well. So that is a great option there. If you want to go down the Disorienting Grenade, I had to stop myself and make sure I didn't say blinding. The Disorienting Grenade route, we do have Pardon Our Dust. I think that's a great option there. If you want to go with Waveframe Grenade Launchers, Harsh Language would be fantastic here with Destabilizing Rounds. Also Forbearance, of course, to take advantage of all the Arc Shielded Knights. I think that would be a really great way, of course, to generate a bunch of orbs. If you've got Thrall rushing you, Cursed Thrall, Acolytes, I mean, there's so many different ways to take advantage of Waveframes. This is really Waveframe GL's the GM. Great weapon if you want to be a little bit more aggressive. There are some other Arc Legendaries that could quickly burst down Knights, certain Fusion Rifles, certain Arc GLs that aren't Waveframes. I think those would also be excellent here. Arc Knights, I think, are really what's going to be the biggest concern aside from Kel'Garath, especially in the boss room. Champions, hopefully if you've been doing GMs long enough, you probably know how to counter a GM, but I think the Arc Knights can really be that wild card that you just forget about them and then all of a sudden they're right next to you and you're in deep trouble because they deal a lot of damage. So be kind of aware of that. Definitely have an Arc weapon on hand. All three of you in your fire team, just to make sure that those guys are not a problem here. So definitely make sure that you can cover that threat with either a primary or special, but you want to make sure that you deal with them quickly. Moving on to the heavies, Court, is there any Arc weapons you might want to recommend for those Arc Knights?
Well, I think Thunderlord, and I did put Thunderlord and Xenophage in here, but it's mainly to exploit the machine gun overcharge. Again, that's not going to disappear. It's always going to be attached to this strike, at least for this season. And Thunderlord especially, because you can just really burst down those Arc Knights. I've been watching a lot of Datto content when it's, he's been kind of doing a little bit of coaching when it comes to Lost Sectors and how to approach it. And it is that kind of, a lot of folks kind of tend to gravitate towards champions, and yeah, they are very high target, but most of the time it's the ads and those kind of more bulkier rank and file enemies that get really, it kind of snowballs your performance here. So the same here. If you want to really focus on these Arc Knights, Thunderlord will be your best friend here. Plus, it's an overload weapon. You get that 25% reduced damage on them if you don't manage to kill them, and when they're kind of blasting away. Xenophage, which is, again, solar. You could use Xenophage even if it was solar surge, which will alternate, but because we've got machine gun overcharge here, we can exploit Xenophage at any time. It's, Saint gushes about it all the time, and I don't blame him. It is a really strong contender just to really chip away champions or for kind of individual targets like wizards. And you can use Radiant with Xenophage to break through anti-barrier, or I should say barrier champions. Next up, we have Leviathan's Breath, which is, keeps getting these buffs, and it's doing a really good job, and it will do an excellent job when it's Void Surge. Get that 25% on top of the 5,000% damage buff it has against champions now. It's doing a really good job now, and a really great pick if you want to burst down those barriers, but most importantly, those unstoppables. For legendaries, I think the runs that I've done were mostly, did I try a rocket once? It didn't feel all too good to be running rockets, to be honest. And again, to exploit that machine overcharge, you can go down the route of any machine gun. But we've picked out 3 here. Commemoration, that's the Deepstone Crypt MG. We've got Corrective Measure, which is the Vogue MG, and we've got Retrofit Escapade. Now, the running theme here, they're all void. But when it comes to when Void Surge isn't active, Retrofit Escapade will be a really good alternative here. Not that it matters. Again, it's got machine gun overcharge here. But I was running Retrofit with, let's see, check my dim here. So I've got Target Lock and 4 times the Charm on mine. I was just doing wonders against champions, mainly the barrier, because I could use the volatile rounds to pierce them. I was also using it for the Master Challenge as well to really burst down those barrier knights that spawn in each of the platforms. And yeah, that was my preferred loadout. So for me, I picked Outbreak Perfected, Nezarac's Sin, and Retrofit Escapade. All right. Any things to add there, Impetus?
I mean, I think your point, save for some exotic exceptions like Leviathan's Breath, I do think machine guns are the play here. It is. There are enough enemies that you do kind of need a very heavy-hitting add-clear weapon. Again, champions are always going to be a threat, but we were really, when we were dying, in the runs that I was doing with you, Court, and Deacon last night, we were dying to adds. It was either a knight snuck up on us or... it was the knights. It was the knights that were killing us. So you absolutely want to have something that you don't have to worry about blowing yourself up with, like a rocket launcher and a linear fusion rifle. Again, they're just not designed for like major killing. It's really for special boss situations where you have time to really put a lot of bullets downrange, or a lot of bolts downrange. Yeah. So I think a machine gun is going to make the most sense here. If you want to make it exotic, go for it. But the legendary void ones, especially taking advantage of all the artifact perks, so you can really, really just go into overdrive with them. So definitely take advantage of a commemoration if you have it crafted, a retrofit if you have it crafted, or if you have a corrective measure that's, even time lost. Adept big ones would actually make a lot of sense on that roll here. Something like Rewind Rounds Frenzy or Rewind Rounds Firefly would be a great option for putting a lot of damage down where you need it, when you need it. So.
Yeah, I mean, we had the big machine gun buff at the start of this season, the reserves. They are in a really good shape just now. And yeah, we've got some really juicer machine guns that we haven't really listed here. We've got kind of Recurrent Impact, we've got Quillam's Terminus. What else we got here? Circular Logic, which is this season's. If you've got an Avalanche in the background, you can go for that. And we've also got, I don't see it in my dim, but what is the ritual machine gun?
Chain of Command.
Yes, with Osmosis there, so you can exploit that with volatile rounds if you're on a voice subclass. All right. This is the part where we'll talk about the individual subclass builds. I'm going to kick us off with the Hunters. Just one this week. I did contemplate doing a Stasis one, but I think just being able to capitalize on matching the Void Burn, or Surge, I should say, and just getting all the benefits from that, just kind of outweighed the Stasis. But I will talk about Stasis in a future strike. I think it's either Glassway or Lake of Shadows. I'll talk about that then. But yeah, so Void subclass for my fellow Hunters. Super Deadfall Tether. That is the single shot. Grenade, it's Vortex. Melee's the Snare Bomb. Class abilities, Gamblers. And for exotic armor, we've got Orpheus Rig. Haven't seen that for a while, but I've been loving it. Aspects, we've got Stylus Executioner and then Vanishing Step. You could go for Trapper's Ambush, but the only reason I'm picking those two is so I can get the 4 fragments. Speaking of which, we have Echo of Cessation. Finishers create a burst of void damage that causes nearby combatants to become volatile. Full stop. Additionally, defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. So that there's two things here. I was asked this a few times in the D&B server, does it have to be from the finisher to get that void breach from a volatile target? No, you could use your falcons and get those void breaches when you apply volatility. It's just this particular fragment has kind of two main primary effects here. Vigilance, which is the second new. So Cessation was one of the ones that was introduced into this season. Vigilance is the second. You get that -10 recovery. Defeating a target while your shields are depleted, that is when they're in the red, grants you a void overshield. That was saving my my bacon a lot of times in these runs, because I do like to be a little bit more aggressive than I should be when it comes to these particular GMs. In this particular Grandmaster as well. So I was getting that void overshield, and it was doing some wonders. That was being enhanced by persistence. That's -10 mobility on hunters. It's different for the Titans and Warlocks. I think, respectively, it's resilience and recovery, because it goes by the kind of core subclass identity. So persistence, which is longer lasting invis, overshield, and devour. So I'm going to be invising. I'm going to go. I'll be using my overshield a lot, and I'll be using starvation to get devour. So just a lot more effects. GMs, I think, personally anyway, you get more benefit from these particular type of fragments like persistence, because it lasts longer, obviously, but you've got more opportunity to kind of, especially when it comes to devour, you can get more benefit from it compared to lower end content where it's easier to sustain that. So for most of it, it's a 50% increase, or it's a 5-second increase when it comes to persistence. And yeah, starvation, which is -10 recovery, and picking up a void breach or an orb of power grants devour. So nice little loop there. Starvation into cessation, getting those void breaches, which does give me class ability, but also gives me that devour. And I'll be seeing a lot of orbs of power when I'm teaming up with my fire team. Alternatively, you could go Remnants, which is longer vortex, Undermining, which is grenades now weaken, Domineering if you're going down a sort of suppression build with Wave Splitter. Another way to get Void Breaches as well through Domineering. And you could go for Obscurity, which is your invis on finisher if you're, instead of Orpheus Rigs, go down the route of, what's the arms that everyone has. I've drawn a blank. Aeons, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
I completely blanked Aeons. But yeah, Obscurity with Aeons for Invis, and then you can spec into the whole finishing champions to get heavy there. Specific mods, really, I've not put a lot of information here. It's really up to you. I went, so my personal build here, I was going for Siphons. So it would have been Void and Kinetic, and then if not using the Kinetic Siphon, I was using Finder and Scout mods just to get those heavy or special bricks. Arms, free pick. I had Grenade Font to boost the Discipline while armor charge because it was quite low. I think it was at 40 or 50. Chest was just resist mods, Arc for Wizards, and Solar and Concussive for General. Legs, I actually had Surge mods on, which I don't tend to equip with Grandmasters. But because Devour and Invis and Overshield and Void Breaches, I don't see much benefit of using the pickup orbs to get a thing, especially when you have Devour. When you pick up, when you sustain Devour, you get full health and you get your grenades back really fast as well. So I went down the Surge mod route with Void to really juice up the retrofit escapade. But if you want to go down, you can go Innovation, which is grenade, or Insulation, which is dodge. For class, obviously Reaper, just to get that +1 orb of power that I'm generating on top of the 20. Alternatively, you could go for Special Finisher when you've got your armor charge system up to 3, just to spawn those special bricks for your fellow fireteam members. And yeah, as I said, Outbreak Perfected, Resurrect Sin, and Retrofit Escapade was what I was running. So this build has become a superb Void Hunter build, not just for GMs, for pretty much every type of content. I've talked about how much I love tapping into the aggressive play style for Void Hunter, and this build is, with the new fragments, has got me hooked up. So you can play very aggressive or passively and still reap the benefits of Invis, Overshield, and Devour. Orpheus Rig is my preferred exotic here, but if you want to forgo having your super up all the time and feeding orbs to your fire team, you can swap out for Omnioculus or Gerfalcons. I will have a separate build with Gerfalcons, but it'll be next season because I don't really see much use of it when you've got Volatile Flow in the artifact. And don't be scared to cast Deadfall whenever and wherever. You'll get your super back due to Orpheus really fast, but also thanks to Deadfall being in the second fastest super cooldown. Mobius is in the third fastest cooldown. You could still use Mobius and use it as more of a kind of burst / aerial denial super, but I personally think Deadfall is, in this particular strike, is S tier, because I was getting my tether back all the time and feeding Impetus orbs for his Well of Radiance.
Yeah, you did 2 supers in like 30 seconds, I think, last night.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So Orpheus, years ago, they added a cap where the max you can get from a single tether is 50%. It caps off at that. But as long as you keep killing things and you're picking up more orbs, you can get your super back just instantly. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Reminds me of the days of Escalation Protocol where there wasn't a cap on Deadfall tether with Orpheus rigs, and lots of fun. So that is my hunters. I'm going to cover Titans as well for Saint. Saint's put a little bit of description and mods and particular things for Void Titan. So for Super, it's Bubble, Grenade, Vortex Grenade. Melee is Shield Throw. And the Tall Wall for the class ability. He's went for Heart of Inmost Light for his exotic armor. For aspects, he's chosen Offensive Bulwark and Controlled Demolition. Echoes of Starvation, Remnants, Undermining, and Persistence. Specific mods here, he's went for Void Siphon, Heavy Ammo Finder, and Scout. For arms, he's got Firepower. He hasn't listed anything for chest, so that'll be kind of up to you. Free pick. Resistance mods, primarily. For legs, he's actually went down the same route as I. Void Surge ×2, and he's got Recuperation. For class, he's got Bomber, Distribution, and
Dilation is what he meant to type.
Dilation, yeah, there we go. And weapons, here we go, Conditional Finale. He's gone double special, although that is, for, using a Conditional Finality plus a Trace Rifle. He's got Hollow Denial, and then, of course, a Void Machine Gun. So for comments here, he has put, this build is about maximum survivability and ad clear. Between Devour and Controlled Demolition, you'll be healing yourself and your fire team constantly. Heart of Inmost Light, Controlled Demo, and Devour also all contribute to insanely high uptime for your potent Vortex Grenades, which are the other focus of this build. One well-placed grenade and take down a whole wave of minor enemies or prime mini-bosses and champions to be burned away by your fire team. Yeah, he's got Undermining, so he's got that 50% debuff with the weakened grenades. Another build that he's been enjoying this season, swap out Hoyle for Doomfang Pauldrons. Interesting. Which are S tier in terms of ad clear and orb generation. Yeah, naturally that. Yeah. Other mods like Grenade Kickstart can help make up for some of the lost grenade generation. Very interesting. I think he's already done this strike. I would like to play Heist Battlegrounds with these three, just to see how these builds are running. But speaking of which, we have quite a few builds here Warlock, what are you, Warlock, Impetus, what are you recommending for the Warlock?
Jeez, come on, man.
Warlock, what are you recommending for Impetus?
All right, Warlock, what do you got here? Listen, yeah, so I've made a recommendation for Solar, Void, and Strand just to take advantage of all the surges, depending on when you are going into this. If you've already got Conqueror, you might be able to take advantage of this during the Solar surge, or if you have to go in this next week, it's Void. And then, of course, if you want to rock Strand, I've also got a recommendation there. Let's see, I'm actually going to start with Strand. This is the build that I've been recommending for this entire season using Swarmers. I'll go through this quite quickly because I've already talked about it a lot in the past. We've got the Needle Storm Super, Threadling Grenade, Arcane Needles for melee, Healing Rift, and then of course the exotic armor Swarmers, the boots. We've got Weaver's Call and Mindspun Invocation, and I am using the Threads of Evolution, so my Threadlings go farther and do more damage. Warding, picking up Orb of Power gives me that sweet Woven Mail. Generation, where dealing damage generates grenade energy. And then I've gone for Finality, where finishers create Threadlings. Again, a lot of enemies rush you, especially Thrall, so if you can do a few pieces of damage to one that's right nearby, finish it, you get more Threadlings to kind of hold off any other enemies that might be charging you, or if there aren't any enemies nearby, the Threadlings will of course return to you and perch. For our mods here, Ashes to Assets, probably not super necessary because Threadlings don't do a lot of damage. They don't do a lot of killing. They do excellent damage, but the chances of you proccing this a whole lot isn't going to happen too much. But it's always nice to have extra super if you want to swap that off for surges. Siphon mods. You're more than welcome to do so. For the arms, fastball, grenade kickstart, I think those are going to be excellent options. You'll definitely get a lot of use out of those two. I leave the chest slot always open for resist mods, so I don't ever put anything in there because I want it to be as open as possible for you, depending on what kind of content you like. For legs, I love running the Holy Trinity of Better Already, Innervation, and Recuperation for health and ability energy. And then on my class piece, I have Bomber and Time Dilation to help out with those grenades. So this is what I jokingly refer to as the Beastmaster build. You're just making a bunch of Threadlings, kind of having them be that front line of offense and defense for any enemies that want to get close to you. And then, of course, if you need to quickly send out a burst of enemies to slow down any knights that might be charging towards you, that's a great way to do that, or hold off the Cursed Thrall. That is where this build will really shine. You don't have a lot of healing outside of those orb mods in your legs, so that's why I've put them there. I've also included the Thread of Warding to give you Woven Mail when you do pick up those Orbs of Power. I think this is probably the toughest of the three recommendations, but again, if you feel comfortable with this, if you're running with experienced players, if you are maybe farming this GM next week over and over again, I think this will allow you to probably be pretty aggressive while not sacrificing health or defensive plays, staying alive, the critical important feedback that you need for any GM clear. So that is my Strand recommendation. For Warlocks wanting to go in here, I will jump back to Solar now to talk about that. We are going to recommend Phoenix Protocol. The strategy that I was running last night, I had one of our sponsors, Deacon, was also on Solar Warlock, and we were simply feeding each other wells. Court was also helping, of course, with all the orbs that he was generating, but that is kind of really important for the first 2 pain points. It's not going to be of huge use to you in the boss room, but again, well can be quite nice just for keeping yourself alive and also getting a lot of ability energy back, but it will not be quite as useful in the boss room. So that's where this build does fall apart, but the boss room is kind of its own separate thing, and there are still some parts of Solar Warlock that can be useful even in there if you can't take advantage of a super exotic. So this is Well of Radiance. We are running a fusion grenade. Melee, the choice is irrelevant. Go with either one you like. We're going to be able to run Healing Rift this time because it's Phoenix Protocol that we're using, not Starfire Protocol. I don't think Starfire is going to be as useful because it does route you to your Rift or your Well, and that is, again, a bad idea even in the first 2 pain points, let alone the boss room. So Phoenix will give you more of a use the first half of this GM. For the aspects, Icarus Dash and Touch of Flame. Again, fusion grenades with Touch of Flame is just a nice, excellent damage source, so even if you can't plant a well in the boss room, you can at least take advantage of those fusion grenades exploding twice, wiping out the Solar Wizards, Solar Shielded Wizards, and then any other enemies that show up, especially the Knights after you pop that Arc Shield. The fragments that I recommend here, we're going Ember of Resolve, where a grenade kills Kiryu. Ember of Ashes, you apply more Scorch stacks. Ember of Singeing, your class ability recharges faster when you apply Scorch to targets. And then Ember of Char, where your ignitions apply Scorch to nearby targets. Those are quite nice for, again, dealing with a lot of ad clear, especially in that second room, the lobby area. For the mods here, Ashes to Assets absolutely will work. Fusion grenades are excellent for killing enemies. On the arms, I've gone Fastball, Firepower, and Grenade Kickstart. Again, chest is wide open for your resist mods. Legs, again, better already. Innervation, Recuperation, really leaning into healing, keeping you alive, and then getting ability energy back. And then on class, Bomber and Time Dilation. I kept that same loadout, really mod loadout for all three of these recommendations here. I think that's just kind of a nice basis, but feel free to tweak as you see fit. This is, again, I think really, really strong when you have another Warlock who's got either Starfire or Phoenix Protocol on, and you can just really feed each other wells over and over again. It's great for staying alive. In the boss room, you will run into problems. Wells are kind of a huge come get me signal, and that will not be the play kind of once you get to that halfway point when Kel'Grath becomes a little bit quicker. So you do need to be aware of that, but it is nice to just have healing available. And if you can find good cover in the boss room and put down a well to have at least maybe a few seconds of safety before you need to run away from the boss, that can come in handy. So Phoenix Protocol for sure is the play if you want to be a solar warlock. The one that I will probably swap to when I go back in, hopefully tonight, will be the Void Walker build here. I think this is going to be really strong. We are running the Nova Bomb Vortex variant. Really what we're going to be using here, again, Controverse Hold. I love that exotic armor so much. We're using Vortex Grenade to keep enemies kind of in place, slow them down, take advantage of that suck effect. And we're also doing that for the Vortex Nova Bomb. I really want to take advantage of holding enemies at bay when I hit them with that super so that they take damage over time and also that they don't rush me, because that is how you die really quickly. So Vortex Nova Bomb Super, Vortex Grenade, Pocket Singularity Melee, Healing Rift, and then Controverse Hold for the exotic armor. For our aspects, Chaos Accelerant and Feed the Void, all about getting Devour up and running here. The Echoes that I am using, that's our Void Fragments. We've got Remnants. The grenades have the increased duration. Undermining for that sweet Weaken debuff that I can apply. And then Persistence to keep the Devour up as long as possible, because that's how we're going to stay alive. Ashes to Assets is just free on a Devour Grenade Warlock. So go for that as much as you want. Also Siphon mods if you want as well. Fastball, Firepower, Grenade Kickstart in the arms. Chest is open for your resists. Legs, again, better already. Innervation, Recuperation, really nice triple combo there. And then class item, Bomber and Time Dilation. These are my three recommendations here. I think Voidwalker is going to be the benefit of Voidwalker over something like our Well Warlock is you get to be mobile and still get that healing from Devour, going and picking up orbs to have Innervation and Recuperation take advantage, right? So this lets you kind of bait Kel'Grath in the boss room, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes, but you get to be moving around, you get to be dodging enemies that might be running at you, still getting some health, still getting to be lethal, and you're not tied down to a rift or a well as you are in on Solar. So this is my number one recommendation. Again, running without well, I think, can be challenging for players going into this for the first time if you're not super comfortable with Grandmasters, but once you get used to the kit, once you get used to how the enemies approach you, right, you're coordinating with your fire team, communicating with them as well, I think you're going to see some pretty big dividends from this build, especially when you just need to kill a bunch of ads, which we should probably start talking about now, shouldn't we, Court? Let's talk about the noteworthy special enemies, the sheer number of ads that you will have to be dealing with, shall we?
Yeah, there are many ads. So our kind of special enemies here, we've got the Chorister, which is, if you've played Season of the Seraph, which was last season, season 19, there is a special enemy that spawns at the A Seraph Tower after you activate it. So you want to burst that guy down ASAP, because if he activates, so once he gets to the actual what would you call it, the hive relic, the hive kind of
yeah, there's a technical
structure.
name for it, I can't remember it.
Yeah, but the hive structure, it takes about 10 to 15 seconds before the actual trigger happens, and after that you have some very painful shriekers that could be they can completely wipe you out. So the best kind of port of action here is that you want to burst in that chorister ASAP. We'll get into kind of what's the best kind of route here in a second here. But for other special enemies, we've got one Hive Knight after completing the C Seraph Tower. So that's on the left side. We've got at least one Ogre, boss Ogre in the Futurescape lobby. So that's directly after these activating the Seraph Towers. And we've got Arc Shielded Knights, which we've been talking about a lot this episode. That's in the boss room. Those drop the cores that you'll be dunking. And the Solar Shielded Wizards, again, they are primarily in the boss room. They serve just as an annoying enemy to deal with if you aren't careful. For activity pain points, and good to know. So at the start, we've got the Seraph Towers. It's the intro. The best route that I found was sort of path of least resistance. Start at B, which is the middle tower. Sort of middle, but it's on the left side. Then go to C, which is in the far left side at the kind of top end, at the sort of maintenance kind of area of the building, and then A, which is on the right side where the chorister spawns. So the Hive Knight spawns after B is completed, but there's no rush to kill him, and he'll move towards between the B and A towers. You don't need to kind of rush him to kill him. He doesn't become a nuisance. He doesn't follow you or track you towards C, and you don't need to activate A to kind of deal with him. He just becomes like almost like a D kind of flag. You just defeat him, and then you move on to A. Futurescape lobby. So this is where a lot of the fun kind of happens. Impetus and I have been talking about it throughout this episode. Just a lot of orbs will be spawning. Where is the best place to stand, Impetus?
So when you come into the lobby, you'll have the stairs kind of in front of you leading up, and then at the back left is where you would go on to progress. And then kind of the back right up there at the top is where a lot of enemies spawn. Directly above you is this mezzanine platform level that does circle around to the right. That's where we stand up there. So as you first come into the lobby, after you get the gunk out of the doorway there, you will have two champions that spawn in the back left. You'd want to stun them before you make them move, actually. But there is a staircase that runs down the left wall there, and you can hop up on some crates that are stacked there and then jump up onto this mezzanine level. And then you're going to look down at that back left area, but you get to see the whole area, and you're up above, right? Because there's staircases leading up to the far back side there. So you're now kind of at eye level or a little bit higher than most of the enemies as they spawn in. So you get to rain down supers, you get to rain down all that sweet heavy ammo, and you can basically have a pretty large space to kind of back up from, again, because it's a large mezzanine platform. So if they start hitting you when you're standing over the lip, you just take a few steps back. You do need to worry about some ad spawns behind you. When you do start the encounter, you'll see that the actual spawns are they're platforms, and they're lit up by this hive soul fire. So you can see one that's kind of right in front of the windows there, back behind you on the mezzanine level. You will have a few acolytes and thrall that spawn there throughout this encounter. So just be aware of those. If you have one person on your fire team, occasionally kind of turning around, making sure you'll get that hive screeching noise whenever they do spawn in, that you've probably heard a million times before, but you'll definitely get to know it when you do this. But it is a pretty safe area. Again, it keeps you above the enemies, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about enemies raining down fire on you. You get to rain down fire on them. So just be aware of the trash ads that can spawn, or that will spawn behind you occasionally. You can also have to deal with ads that might make their way up the staircase to the left or follow along the mezzanine to the right side. We did have a few Arc Knights kind of come along that side to come chase us with swords. Again, you should be able to see them. Just have somebody that's looking behind you also look to the right to see any ads. I had a few Cursed Thrall. I was kind of the one that was looking behind me when I was running it last night. Again, not a threat until they're right on you. So just call them out. Just be aware of that. This is where your crowd-controlled weapons, your supers like your tethers, your silence and squall, chaos reach, the broodweaver super, down into the lobby will keep everything at bay, and then also generate a bunch of orbs. I mean, it's going to be a lot of stuff happening all at once. I pray for your frames. Hopefully you have a good system, whatever you're running on, because you're about to make a lot of particle effects. But again, if you have 2 bubbles or 2 wells, just be cycling through them periodically. Again, make sure that you have space if you're doing a bubble where players can step out and shoot. And then with the wells, of course, just keep an eye on that timer when it runs out so that you can immediately pop the second one. You do want to be cycling all of your supers, regardless of whether or not they're bubbles, wells, tethers, silence and squall, broodweaver, all that stuff. Just keep going. You do not need to save them for anything. Like, everything that happens once the ghost starts working on getting that door open is prime super material, and that doesn't normally happen. But that's kind of a unique feature of this GM. Is like, if you've got it, use it. That goes for pretty much everything here. Your ghost will be disrupted sometimes. Typically it happens when there's something like a mini boss or a champion that gets too close. If you want to pivot along the mezzanine, move your way to the right so that you do get an angle, because that can sometimes happen where they get too close to the door and you don't have line of sight. That's totally fine. Court was also being pretty aggressive, and he'd just run down the stairs to go look at whatever was down there. It was typically the unstopped ogre would get all the way across, and then he'd have to go solo that, which he handled perfectly fine. But again, if you're not comfortable doing that, you can rotate down the mezzanine until you get an angle on it, stun it, and then start dealing with it. But yeah, there are a lot of different types of enemies. The giant boss ogres that kind of spawn in the back are pretty intimidating when they first come in, because they're the largest enemy in here. But just call out things if you're focusing on champions. Call out to your fire team, hey, I'm focusing on this barrier knight. Hey, I'm worried about this unstoppable ogre. Let's stun that. Okay, let's deal damage. And then just be aware of some arc shielded knights that can kind of sneak up on you or will spawn out there. There are curse thrall. Again, they're very slow. You can typically don't have to worry about them, but they typically like to take that right side and slowly work their way over to you. So just pop them before they get too close, or they'll pop you. Court, you got anything else to add about it?
I think the reason why I was being pretty aggressive when to undisrupt the door sequence was, if you don't do that, the ads just keep spawning. It is an infinite amount of ads, and the ogres as well. That's why I was being quite focused on getting that door back up and running, because you don't need to be there for any amount of time that's required. It's you're in there. You might get disrupted once or twice, but undisrupt that, and then you're out and pretty much done. But yeah, that the mezzanine level is the best spot. Personally, you don't need to be near the door for Ghost to be doing his work. And yeah, just rain supers down. This is another kind of place where I thought maybe I will recommend Stasis Hunter with Silence and Squall, just to get that like complete avalanche effect with the ads that are spawning, and you just freeze them, and then just this cascading of freeze into shatter. But Void Hunter was just a lot of fun, and just getting these guys their supers back. But fun place. And next up is maybe not so much fun. It's the Submine Vault security door breach. So that's just right before the boss room. You will need 3 of the refraction cores to destroy the 5 hive seals. If you slow down, the infinitely spawning ads at the entrance will snowball unless you have crowd control kind of abilities. So you want to get those refraction cores ASAP. Left side has some ads. There's a mini boss taking phalanx. The right side and the middle, well, technically the middle does, but the middle refraction core, when you go up, doesn't have any ads there, and neither does the right side. So you can forego the left core and instead just focus on doing the middle and the right. The right one will respawn shortly after it's used up, but the middle will not. And yeah, this is a place for Silence and Squall, Void Hunter with the Deadfall tether, just to kind of really control the ads, because they can completely ruin your runs. Do not be thinking this is break time before the boss. This is kind of the prelude to the boss. You cannot lose focus here, because those ads, they do not despawn during the event. They will after you've finished the rune door, but you'll just keep dealing with these ads. And again, you don't need to be there for any amount of time that's necessary. So lastly, we have the boss room. So I think I was mentioning this to Impetus and Deacon last night when we were running this. It is pretty similar to Lightblade in the vein of you have to keep moving. This is a room which has a lot of cover compared to the Lightblade. The boss isn't as aggressive. It can be aggressive. There are stages where the boss can get aggressive, but in general, the boss isn't necessarily the threat here. If you do get too close, you will get completely slammed by his weapon. But I personally think it's the ads. Impetus, you mentioned this earlier, but ads are the ones that you need to focus on. If you don't defeat the ads, again, it's another place where it will snowball and just create this unmanageable scenario. So in general, the ads do keep spawning. I mentioned this at the start of the episodes when we were talking about Master and Legend content. It's a different type of ad spawning. It's more manageable, but taking it slow and steady while cleaning up any spawning ads, and the room becomes fairly straightforward to deal with. You do have a boss that's kind of roaming around, and you've got ads that kind of can snipe you, and arc knights that can slash you or boom knight you, it becomes fairly straightforward if you're with the approach of any of these GMs. I think this is the most important place to take it nice and slow and steady. A lot of comm work, positioning as well. You've got lots of cover at specific angles, for me, the best strat is to have one person kind of babysit the boss. Again, similar to the Lightblade, and have one positioned on the left side of the map and one on the right. Not too far up. You want to keep to the where you enter the arena. Just keep to the barricades, keep to the barrier, and just that's the sort of ideal positioning. Again, communication with the person who's babysitting the boss, and at this point, covering up all the dealing with all the ads, and then damaging the boss every so often. The boss at this stage isn't as aggressive, and will occasionally teleport out of the arena. That's kind of an annoying mechanic here, but that can be kind of a godsend just to reset positions, to reset communications, and he will return in the same spot a few seconds. So just try and take that in mind when you're when he does teleport out. At half health is when the boss goes immune, but you'll walk around instead of running around. He will not be able to. You'll not be able to damage him. But again, it's more kind of focusing on the priority here is to focus on the champions that spawn in, and again, the arc shielded knights are the ones that spawn in at this point, and they spawn at each corner of the arena. So kind of top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. And this is where you want your arc weapons just to burst them down. Those two champions are the only champions that spawn in this boss arena. So there's none at the start. There's none that kind of come at the end of the phases here. I've mentioned this before at the start, or kind of near during this episode, where sometimes it's the champions don't need to be destroyed ASAP. Just because you want better positioning. So it's the arc shielded knights and the ads that come with them. Those are the ones you want to focus on primarily. Then it's the champions. But as Impetus was mentioned earlier on, if your positioning is not the best, those champions will completely, annihilate you. So when they spawn in, again at half health, you do not want to be in the middle of the map. Just keep to the left, bottom left, or bottom right. So, Impetus, once we've got to the sort of middle kind of phase, we're dealing with the knights. What's the strat here? What we vibing with?
So the champions in question, it's one unstoppable ogre and one barrier knight. The ogre is absolutely going to hunt you down. Whoever's closest, it will seek you out. I think the barrier knight typically kind of sits up at the top. It will move down the staircases, but it's basically just camping the spot where you need to go dunk the cores, which is great and awesome, and that's so So cool. So, and then you have Kelgrath just doing his thing slowly. So if you can't afford to deal with both the champions right away because you need to deal with the knight that might have spawned near you, do be aware of the Unstoppable Ogre. I think that's probably that's definitely the champion you should focus on first, because that's probably the one that's going to come towards one of the people in your fire team. But yeah, take care of the knights first, depending on where you are, because they could be the closest thing. If you do get caught in the middle like I did, again, Glaive Shield is going to be nice, but if you don't get it up fast enough, the ogre will just beam you immediately, which is how I died. So just be aware of that. Don't deal damage to Kelgrath until everyone is in the right spot. Then you can, pop that halfway point, get the champion stunned in. After that point, you're going to have to worry about the cores. I think don't try and immediately deposit a core until you get a rhythm going with the rest of your fire team. If somebody dies due to one of the knights or Kelgrath, right, they get snuck up on, get them up, right? This is the core part in particular. You want to make sure everyone in your fire team is alive when you're going in, right? When you're going up the stairs, when you get to that special platform, absolutely make sure that the barrier knight is not a problem. Again, I know for invis hunters, some of you think you can just get around all of this because, they can't see me and let me just go dunk. No, play it safe. Clear out the champions, clear out as many ads on that top platform where you have to go deposit the cores before you do that, because if you die up there, you are putting the other two members of your fire team in a really, really bad spot. So it's not, again, I think a lot of people kind of forget about the fire team when they go invis, like, oh, don't worry about it, guys, I'll just take care of it. No. Your fire team will have to worry about you if you don't got it. So think of them, be safe, make sure that your other two fire team members kind of have line of sight on that platform if for whatever reason the person who is depositing the cores do go down. Be aware of where Kelgrath is. There's a lot going on here, but again, kind of establish a rhythm and then just go in, dunk those 5 cores, and proceed on to the final phase, which is going to be harder, right? We don't have to worry about champions, but Kelgrath's shield is removed, and he now aggressively runs around the arena and tracks Guardians. So this is kind of, again, like Lightblade, where Alcool gets a little bit faster, a little bit meaner. Bungie's definitely learned their lesson with Kelgrath and Alcool. You do get to babysit this boss, but you don't have to. You don't have the luxury of the boss jumping up and down from platforms. You're all going to be on the same level. The staircase isn't stopping him. He will just keep tracking after you, and you're in a spot where it's a much smaller room. You've got the pillars, and Kelgrath just phases in and out of reality at the worst possible times. So definitely be calling out if you're the babysitter where the boss is. Sometimes your fire team members can't see you. They can't assume that the boss is near you. So if you lose sight of the boss, or if the boss phases out of reality, call that out just in case a fire team member accidentally gets a little too close, because once Kelgrath comes out, he will immediately do that slam attack with the axe, and you cannot survive that. It will be an immediate death, and the radius is ridiculously large. I think, Cord, I watched you die one time in an attempt where you were 15 feet away from Kelgrath, and the axe came down and you were gone. Just obliterated.
Wasn't playing at all.
Yeah. So again, if you are babysitting, stay a lot farther away from Kelgrath than you do with Alakul, because the axe attack is much, much wider, and he's a lot faster, and the room is shaped a little bit differently. But yeah, make sure you have a babysitter, because that takes the pressure off the rest of the fire team, and they can deal with ad clear, which again is the number one priority here, especially in that second phase when the boss is faster. So again, you're going to be talking pretty much all the time. You should not be keeping quiet, just calling out your strat for the boss, calling out when the boss disappears, calling out when ads have spawned in, especially if it's the champions, calling out when you're going to deposit a core so that the other two fire team members know that you're going to be up there on that raised platform. Yeah, always be talking to your fire team is really the key to success here. The pillars do provide a lot of cover. I wasn't actually aware of this until I got in there last night, but even when I had, a solar wizard kind of firing at me, if I just stepped behind a pillar, I was safe here. The pillars do also kind of throw off Kelgrath's tracking, so it's hard for him to be quick when you're kind of dodging in and around the pillars there. So it can be intense if you're not prepared for it, but utilize the cover, because there is plenty of that. Call out to your fire team if you need help. Just be aware of enemies. Definitely listen, because a lot of the enemies, I know Kelgrath does a roar when he comes out of when he phases back in. The Arc Knights, of course, love to charge up towards you here, and the Wizards are shrieking off like crazy. You'll definitely hear the Unstoppable Ogre when it kills you. I know that from personal experience. So just call out your priority of targets. It's pretty general advice here, but it's worth repeating because this can be a rough one. So just make sure you know where to look if your fire team member's in trouble. Make sure you get Kelgorath off of them if they go down, or make sure you're in a safe space before someone comes to go res you, because that does happen a lot. And then don't die. Any other advice?
No, again, it's something that we've mentioned before with all these GMs, but again, for this one, we're not really damaging the boss as much as compared to other Grandmasters. So use your supers whenever, like, if you're in a pinch, just pop it. Like a number of times in the sessions that I was doing with this particular GM was with Void Hunter, and I was just using my Night Stalker tether, because I can get it back pretty fast. Reaper, dodging in and out, getting that orb. These guys are casting Wells of Radiance or using their supers, and just keep using them. Like, don't be afraid to use them. Much like the PvP, don't take your super to orbit. And it's the same applies here. Whether it's just to help out your team, if you've seen a lot of ads that have spawned in, you're communicating that with the team. It's like, okay, I'm going to pop my tether in the middle just so I can help out the guy who's about to dunk, and just go from there. It really helps to be to have communication with your fire team here, and honestly, it's not a bad room. If you played the Legend or the Master version or just the normal version from last season, you have this false impression that there's a lot more ads than there are, and same here. Grandmaster, there's a specifically curated version of ads that spawn in. It's a bunch of Acolytes, a bunch of Wizards, and you will have the Arc Knights that kind of periodically spawn in so often. But it's not frustrating to deal with whatsoever. Again, if you let them spawn in and you don't kill them, that's where it starts to snowball. And that's sort of running theme with this particular Grandmaster is don't let it snowball. It just becomes absolutely frustrating. So timing wise, just before we round things off with this episode, what are you expecting? First time clear, I managed to do it around, I think it was between 35 to 45 minutes. I think that's what you'll be expecting. You may get to the stage where darkness encroaches. You'll lose those res tokens, and that's completely normal. Like, if you're taking this really slow and steady, absolutely intended. Repeat clears, what are we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get sub 35 on a regular basis, I'd say you're cooking. Again, it's not a GM where you want to be foolish. You got to really be comfortable with slaying out and definitely managing your Arc Knights. But yeah, if you can deal with things. I'm just thinking of the boss room, because the lobby isn't really an area you can speed up, right? I mean, slaying out is like, there is only so much slaying out you can do, because the champions, of course, will slow you down. The boss ogre just takes a while to kill. So short of like completely redoing your loadout, I think you're going to probably spend the most amount of time in the lobby. The boss room, again, unless you put on damaging weapons, like you go rocket launchers, you go linear fusion rifles, you're just gonna be dealing with chip damage most of the time. So I'd be proud with, if I was doing this over and over again, sub 35, to be honest. And again, staying alive, like you don't want to burn through the reses, especially not if you're trying to farm this. So this is not the farmable GM. I think is pretty fair to say.
It's the fun GM. I'm going to be honest.
Fun.
I've been having a blast, even the times where we've kind of fell at the gates at the end of the boss room, and it's just, I've been having an absolute blast with stretching those builds to their highest potential. And honestly, like, the most taxing arena, I don't know, like, it's maybe the boss room, but maybe even the start. The start's maybe the one that you probably, if you're not careful, you can get sent back to orbit, and you have to do it all over again. If you've got that rhythm, you've got that routine with the boss room, I personally don't think it's the most taxing arena. It just becomes just standard practice with being, having that communication with your fire team. And for repeat clears, I don't think there's really technically a taxing arena anywhere. It's just having that routine, having that rhythm.
Slow and steady.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, they made a fun Battleground GM, so props to Bungie for that. I can't quite say that I want more of them because, again, I haven't cleared this one. I've gotten pretty far, but if they wanna go down this route with a few more, I could understand why. We're looking forward to it. It is definitely a unique GM experience, which we do need because the GMs have been around for quite a while. But anyways, that wraps up episode 59 of Podcast versus Enemies. Thank you so much for listening. We also want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidaktos, for his work behind the scenes. Thank you so much, sir. We will continue our GM breakdowns next week with Hypernet Current, and of course cover any news that Bungie may put out in that time. Until then, my name is Impetus. You can find me by that name in Destiny and on Discord, and as Impetus always on Twitter. Court, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter as Court Projects. You can find me on the Discord server as Court. You can find my infographics, spreadsheets, and various other kind of content over on the Destiny Massive Breakdowns website. And you can also find other content like infographics and spreadsheets from the general community, the science community, also on the website as well. All right, good luck on your runs with the Mars Battleground. We'll see you next week.